It is 4:16 a.m. in the morning on a Saturday, guys. On a Saturday. And I honestly, I had no idea I'd have an experience on Friday night / Saturday. Actually, my experience began at, oh gosh, what time was it? We're at 4:16 a.m. right now. So the experience probably began at around 3:50 a.m., somewhere around there. By the way, guys, this is a Beyond Body experience, and it's been quite some time since I've had an experience, almost a month. Probably more than a month, actually, guys. It's been a very long time. The longest I've gone without having an experience for years, actually. Very interesting. Why is this? I can't be sure, because I'm sure people may ask me why they think, or why do I think that I went so long without having an experience. And as you guys know, I've been dealing with some things that may have contributed. Also, my focus on my podcast may have also contributed in some way. You know, I can't be sure about these things. It's so funny. One of the things, again, that I see on the subreddit is I think people try and figure out or formulate why certain things happen, you know, and then they try and figure out some sort of a foolproof way to have an experience anytime and every time they want to. And I'm again going to say that, in my very humble opinion, that's just not possible. It's just, you know, you can't, there's no formula to having this every single time. And there are going to be times when you're not having an experience. But hey, let me get actually into the experience so I can let you guys know. Again, my experiences are usually fairly brief, but in my mind, in my opinion, they are very significant. So this was one of those experiences again. Now, when I talk about the Beyond Body, and it's been a while since I have talked about an experience, so if you're just joining me on this channel and you just happen to find this channel, you know, you see the astral plane and beyond, you're thinking astral projection. By the way, I've been astral projecting since I was 9 years old, and I'm now 53. I'll be 54 this year, believe it or not. And so I've been astral projecting for that long, but within the last 6 or 7 years is when I began having these beyond body experiences. And very briefly, the beyond body experiences, the difference between astral projection and beyond body is there is no sense that I have necessarily left my body. I don't feel separation. On many of my beyond body experiences, I will feel movement as if my entire body is in movement, whether it be in flight or coming off my bed or whatever it is, and I'll end up in some other place at some point. The darkness will lift, and I normally travel through darkness, and then once the darkness lifts, I can see where I am. Now, in this particular experience, guys, I felt, number one, the place just materialized, and I've talked about that as well, where I will be just in darkness and without movement. This place or the wherever I am will just start to come into view. And my feeling on this particular occasion was that I was on a train with the window open. Now, that was what the feeling was. Now, could I see inside the train? No, I wasn't able to see inside the train. The only sense that I got was that I was looking out a window, and the first thing I remember seeing is a sign, like the kind of sign you would see maybe if you were on a train. And the sign, the city or whatever it was spelled Zeus, like Zeus. And there was another sign that was there that was crossing in another direction, and it started with a P, but I don't remember that name. I just remember the Zeus, Zeus. Again, I took a moment, by the way, and I tried to look up if there was an actual Zeus. I think there was a Zeus city or something like that, but I really didn't see anything of any significance. The other thing is, as I was moving, there were a couple of things going on as I was seeing this sign. I want you guys to really, I want to bring you guys in on how I was experiencing this. So as I'm seeing this sign, I'm also got some talk going on in the background. I had my iPad on and it was full blast and it was real close to me. That was another interesting thing. I wouldn't have thought I would have had an experience like this, but as I was seeing these signs, I could hear the sound of talking coming out of my iPad at the same time. I could hear it, but I was able to balance my focus between seeing the visuals that were going on, that were passing me, the sign and everything else, and then balancing that with the sound that was going on in the background. And I was also talking as I was in movement. I was like, oh my God, I can see this and talk at the same time. It was very interesting, guys. I was able to do all of these different things. It was very interesting. And after I passed the sign, I seem to remember that there was a fence, and the fence was a wooden fence, and it looked very distant to me at first. So if you can imagine yourself as all these things are going on, you have the talk going on in the background, you're talking as you're seeing this, you have this sense that you're in a train and you're looking out the window, though you can't hear the sounds of a train. And then you see this fence, and I'm moving past this fence, and the fence looked really far away. But then this is what I did. I did this thing, and by the way, it worked again. This whole thing with touching something in the reality brings me to the reality. So I reached out with my hand, which, by the way, guys, I'm certain that, it wasn't my physical hand. I was reaching out with my thoughts. But in my mind, I was thinking, reach out with my hand. And so I reached out and I touched the fence. Now, I actually did see my hand when I reached out and touched it. I believe I did see my hand, but I am realizing, I'm realizing now, I wasn't thinking about it at that moment, that my hand represented my thoughts, my mind, and my mind reached out and touched that fence, touched a part of the reality, and suddenly I was there in the reality. And in fact, it's so interesting. It's now coming to me. I remember when I touched it, we were in movement, but as soon as I touched the fence, I stopped. I wasn't in movement anymore. So it was like, I thought to myself, wow, I was able to stop the train just by touching this fence. So it was very interesting in that way. So I touched the fence, the movement stops. It was as if the train had stopped. And then I was like, oh. And then I leaped out of the space that I was in, and I went way over the fence. And it was exaggerated how high I went. I must have jumped maybe 20, 25, 30 feet into the air. It must have been that. It was really high. And then I came down, and as I was coming down, there were people that I think that were around, and I was afraid I was going to land on them. So I told people to, I said, excuse me. And they moved back, and I came down. Now, this place that I was in, there were fields, and the fields, they looked like blue vegetation to me. I don't know why, but they were like either weeds or something like that. I want you to imagine the Wild West, 1800s. For those of you who are not in the United States, the Wild West period of this country was the 1800s. And it was a whole thing with cowboys and saloons and shootouts and things like that. Now, I got the sense that that's where I was, that I was back in the Wild West. I don't recall seeing much architecture. I remember seeing the field, and I remember the way the wind blew the field. That's what I remember, that the flowers and everything were blowing, and it was quite beautiful and very, very peaceful. Remember that. I don't remember much about the architecture, but my sense was that I was in the Wild West. And so that's what I'm going to go with. I think that the architecture reflected that, but I wasn't really checking out the architecture too much at that moment. I just remember seeing the vegetation and how peaceful it was. The other thing I will note here is that I felt the sense that there were people around me and I knew them, but I don't recall anyone specific or that was there that I could really focus on. There were just people that were there. I knew them, I was familiar with them, and there was a certain comfort level with them. That was the feeling that I got when I was out in this field. So then I decided let's see if I can fly. Now, unlike astral projection, when I do the beyond body, I don't always know if flight is possible or not. I've been to a place, at least one place that I can think of, where I tried jumping into the air and I just came right back down to my feet. And I was like, okay, there's real heavy gravity here, so I can't do this. But in this place, when I jumped into the air, it was sluggish, but I was able to fly. And I was flying really high in the air, and it was so amazing. And there were people watching me from the ground, and then some were pointing at me. But I also want to make another note here. No one else was flying in this sort of Wild West 1800s place, this reality that seemed to reflect that. No one else was flying. Everybody was watching me, and I think there was some sort of sense of wonder and maybe amazement as they were watching me. That's, I think, the feeling that I got. It would be as if someone in our 3D world, if you looked up in the air and you saw someone flying without any device, without any equipment, they were able to fly and they just were flying around. If you saw that, you would just be in awe. You would be thinking, oh my God, look at that person. Wow, they can fly. That's incredible. That's the sense that I got when I was flying in this place. And so as I was flying by the people, I could feel myself starting to get drawn back. And I was like, oh, but I know that this happens so much with being pulled back. And I was doing my breathing, which, by the way, tip really quick, and I've given this tip before. I tell you, this is one tip I will tell you because I've been out there in the field and I know that this helps. Breathe deeply if you feel yourself starting to get pulled back. Take deep breaths. Now, you should be able to feel your body. Again, I know there are people that are out there, I've seen this on the subreddit, they think they're completely separate from their body. But when you are astral projecting or doing what I was doing with the beyond body, you should be able to feel your body as well. You should be able to take deep breaths as well. And there should be this sense, as I've said before, that you are existing in two places at once. You are in your body, but at the same time, you are out there and you are exploring. You should sense that feeling. At least I feel that way. So eventually it became too much. The pull became too much, and I was back in the 3D world, but it was amazing to be out there again. It was a very interesting trip. I think there was even more involved that I may not remember every single thing, but I think I needed this. I needed to go to a place where I wasn't necessarily learning something. I was just out there to have fun and fly. And it was one thing that I did request from my guides. I said, hey, I want to go someplace where I can just hang out, and I want to fly, and I want to do the things that I love to do, that kind of thing. So I did it. Anyway, thank you so much for coming on this journey with me. And until next time, take care.